call the January 21, 2021. Here. Roll call.
Neil Johnson,
Here.
Greg Collier,
Here.
Andrew Barker,
Here.
Joel Gardner,
Here.
Steve Smith,
Yes.
Bill Schoonover,
Here.
Micah Thomason.
Here. And 100%.
Okay.
They must have heard we were giving out toys today.
Nobody wants to get elected.
Approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
I'll move that the minutes from the previous meeting be accepted.
A second?
We have none.
All right, we have none, so
Pardon me?
scratch that.
RT minutes.
We don't have the minutes.
There are no minutes.
Can't approve.
All right. Rescind that approval.
Okay, I'm sorry. It doesn't show that we don't have them till the next meeting. Okay. We'll have them the next meeting.
We'll be ready.
Withdraw the motion. Comments from the audience? We have election of officers today. What's your pleasure? We'll start out with the chairman, then the vice chairman, then the secretary.
Mr. Chairman, if I could go ahead and make a motion that the current slate of officers be accepted as is, I'll do that.
You certainly can, but we'll need to,
I'll second it.
we got a motion second. Any questions or comments? If not, go ahead and have a roll call on
Neil Johnson,
it. Yes.
Greg Collier,
Yes.
Andrew Barker,
Yes.
Joel Gardner,
Yes.
Steve Smith,
Yes.
Bill Schoonover,
Yes.
Micah Thomason.
Yes.
Update from Summit. Summit's not represented today. Okay. Report from city attorney. Ernest?
Haven't seen y'all since last year. If you recall at the last meeting, Jeff Mann, you remember we got a judgment against him for unpaid hangar rentals, and there was a balance owed on the restaurant rental as well, and he had made a proposal that some of the restaurant equipment be kept on site that he left, that he be given credit for that. Commission voted to say that if he would pay $1,300, that we would give him credit for what was owed to the city and satisfy the judgment as well. I communicated that fact to Mr. Mann's attorney. He has not given me an answer one way or the other. I asked him as recently as yesterday as well, because he knew there was a meeting today. I also told you last month that in the A&J, is it A&J Construction, I think it's called, the corporation that Mr. Mann has that has an ongoing bankruptcy case. That is the entity with which we had the land lease that we terminated back in June. He filed bankruptcy after we terminated the lease. They had filed a motion in the bankruptcy case to assume that lease, and we were opposing it. They dropped their motion to assume the lease on the condition that the equipment or that the materials that were left on site, and I've got pictures if you're interested in seeing them, that they be returned to Mr. Mann, and they would drop their efforts to try and assume the lease. So I told the attorney for the bankruptcy that I have no doubt the commission is going to ask me what Mr. Mann's response was to the generous offer made by the commission last month. And I assume you're probably going to ask me that, and he's not giving me an answer. So that's where we're at right now. He has asked about this, but I'll take whatever direction the commission gives me with regard to their request.
I would say we don't do anything in regards to that. It was done prior to his bankruptcy anyway, so he doesn't have any right to that.
Okay?
I agree.
Did we have a sunset on that offer on the equipment?
I don't think you all, last month, I don't think that you put a deadline on it. I would have anticipated that he would have jumped on that. I thought it was a very generous, it amounted to like a $6,000 credit.
Right.
Of course, the entity involved in the bankruptcy is different from Mr. Mann individually. The attorney for the bankruptcy says he doesn't represent Mr. Mann individually, but he's communicated the commission's offer to him and not heard back. So I'm happy to go back and say we can't get off square one until we've heard from him about last month's generous offer from the commission would be my,
We have two
Six, seven.
issues, and are we trying to tie them together? We need to treat them separately, right?
they are separate. They are separate issues, but certainly the commission could take one, if they chose to, they could say, look, we're not willing to entertain the other until we know about the one we've already given an offer on. Legally, they're two separate issues, yes.
But we can tie them together.
You could decide not to take action on one until the other's been resolved if you wish to.
I wouldn't just not take action on either one until he does something, be my opinion.
Yeah, that's the right move here.
Okay?
I think that's the right move. Let him spend some more time with his attorney, spending more money discussing this, and he will get an answer.
I personally feel that he has issues with the bankruptcy court, and he's gonna have to come back to us, I would imagine, before he can settle there, because that property, that metal is setting on the property of the city or the airport.
Some of it's at the airport, some of it's at Public Works, but it is in secure locations.
So some of the materials got moved.
Just for safekeeping. We didn't want something to disappear, so I'll be
But-
happy to communicate that back to him. if that's
That being the
commission's
case, the bankruptcy court, at least in my experience, is gonna look at that as being their property in some cases. And I feel like there's a question there because of it being on the city property, who does have access to it? But I'm thinking the bankruptcy court will ask for it. And,
Well, but the bankruptcy came in effect after we met and decided that we were not gonna continue his
the lease.
lease.
That's still, the red iron, the building iron that's out there, components, was not mentioned in the lease. You have to look at it from the time it hit the ground, whose property was it? Well, it's still, if it's not paid for, it's property of the building that furnished it. And they may be trying to get it, or if he paid for it, then it's his property that the bankruptcy court will probably want to go after. If we have a legitimate claim to it, we're going to have to make that case. Is that not right?
It could be. I don't know. It could be. I don't know. I wish we had heard something about the generous offer the commission made last month that might have made you more willing to do something else, but I'll be happy to communicate back to him that we need to know an answer
But
yesterday on
That
what happened
support-
last month before we do anything further.
that supports your statement, do nothing. And let them sort it out and see where it lands, and then we can, if we got a claim to it, well, then we can make that case after we know who has it, who's land claim to it.
I'd like to see the offer that we made last month have an expiration, though. I'd like to not leave this out for 6 months that he
I was
takes
thinking
up
it
for
did. I was thinking it to this meeting, but maybe we'd have to go back in minutes to see what was.
We didn't.
Do you want to go to the next meeting?
Yeah, Ernest, can you establish a deadline in your response back to Mr. Mann or his attorney?
Absolutely.
That if we don't hear something by an agreed upon date today,
If you want
then-
to have a motion in a second and vote on a deadline, we can add that to the offer that was made last month to make the deadline by the next airport commission meeting. If you choose to do that, that'd be fine.
I'd make the motion that we extend our offer for an additional month until the next airport commission meeting. At that point, it expires if we've not heard back from Mr. Mann, and he hasn't executed his portion of paying the $1,300.
I think that's the 18th, I think.
Okay?
Well, that, or I'd like to put a deadline a few days in advance of our meeting to allow you any opportunity to communicate what that response was. So we're not coming in here
Yep.
Well, let's
in
say
the
that,
blind.
I'll amend my motion then. Let's make it the Monday before our next airport commission meeting is our expiration of our offer.
Okay.
That'd be the 15th of February?
Yeah.
So there's the if, but what's the then? So if he doesn't, then we, what?
If he doesn't, then we still have a judgment to collect
Okay, good.
for
Good,
part
good,
of it, and then he still owes us for the rental for the restaurant. We've already got a
for the-
judgment for the hangar rentals,
For the full fare and everything else. Okay,
on the
good.
hangars, yes.
Would the removal of the red iron would be his responsibility, his financial responsibility?
Well, that's
If-
different.
That's a different
That's a
subject.
totally different.
Right, but if it does go away, it's his bill to pay, is that correct?
That's a totally different, at this point, it is
Okay.
in our possession.
Okay.
His request is that he will give up all hopes of assuming that lease if we give him back these materials. That's
Right.
the other issue, separate from the,
Let's finish the
Yeah.
motion that we got.
Okay.
The
Okay,
motion,
with
the motion to make it the 15th of February is our deadline for hearing back and having been paid the $1,300 that we offered last month from Mr. Mann.
and paid.
And paid,
And
yes. Both, we get the $1,300 and we've got an answer from him on it.
Second.
Okay, motion second. Roll call?
Barker,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes, ma'am.
Smith,
Yes.
Schoonover,
Yes.
Thomason,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Collier.
Yes.
Okay?
Thanks for your hard work, Ernest. Maybe we'll get this cleaned up one of these days. Airport operation report, Laura?
It's kind of been business as usual out there, not a whole lot going on. Everything's kind of been wrapped up for the most part. The localizer's been up and running, working. We're just doing small repairs here and there as those come up. We don't have any mowing going on yet. So really business as usual. All the hangars are filled. All the offices are filled. All I have besides the restaurant, which I hope we're gonna get filled, is 2 small storage units out there, and then everything's full and everything's been running smooth. I haven't heard any complaints or any problems, so.
This may go back to Ernest, I'm not sure, but have we gotten anywhere with the Fricks?
Last I heard, he can't track them down.
Yeah, so most of the people that are on the late list, most of those are people that he's already trying to work with, majority of those names. A couple of them are on there, but I know that they've already paid, so they shouldn't really be on there any longer, too.
He's got judgment against them, he's just trying to find them.
Okay.
Are we done with the antenna on the south end?
Yeah, it's done, they just need to get it painted in a couple of months down the road. They're gonna paint it, and as far as I know, it's up and working. The tower hasn't had a problem with it.
Are we waiting on weather to paint it?
Yeah, and the wood, they put a lot of new wood out there. I think they're waiting for that just to season up, and then they'll paint it.
Let it season a little bit?
Yeah,
Makes sense.
yeah, and they're gonna hire the painters, so we don't have to worry about that either.
Okay, thank you.
Are we burying wire for the self-serve pump?
That was answered last week. It's working fine. I mean, last month, it's working fine is what we got reported from.
They found a wire out there, so they connected a router to it.
Yeah.
Daniel's not here. I think they connected a router, and they're able to get it that way. So they're working off of hangar 11 through hangar 11. And
It's a lot
he
easier
hasn't
fix
said.
than what they anticipated.
Yeah. And Summit covered that cost of getting that installed over there.
You mentioned well, I think I'll save the restaurant for Wyman. Did you have any other comments about the restaurant? Because we have a proposal here, another proposal on it.
No, we just have a lot of people asking all the time when we're gonna get food in there, so it would be,
Yes, I get asked that most every week, someone will ask me.
We all want it, Mrs. President.
which is nice to know that it's, I think that if we get somebody of good quality in there with good quality food and, you know, it'll get people to stop at our airport versus flying on to either stopping in Rogers or Fayetteville, so that's kind of what we're hoping.
Well, Wyman's on the next item, and he's also has brought us a proposal for the restaurant. You want to explain this, Wyman? Talk to us about it. I think we have a representative here for that also.
I'd also like to know, I think there's a little something about it in the email, but the last guy that came 2 months ago from there, I'd like to kind of know where that went.
Well, I think we have the gentleman here that's making this proposal. You're Farrell. Why don't you just come on up, and has everybody got a copy of this proposal?
Such as it is.
And you're Farrell Matlock?
Farrell Matlock, yes, sir. I'm formerly with the Pitts Barbecue. We were planning on moving into the airport space. The other people that were involved with the Pitts, they've got too much on their plates. They don't really want to get anything else on their plate at this time. So as of Tuesday morning, I found out they were not interested in moving forward with moving into the airport, and I kind of jumped on it, maybe do it solo. That's why I'm here. I met with Laura, saw the space. I've worked in the space before many years ago. Bill Adams had a place in there called Flaps Down. I worked there for a couple months before I moved on to the Grove, his other location. So I'm familiar with the space. I'm familiar with the equipment that's in there. Most of it, there's a few new things in there, but basically, I want to do just a very dressed down, very affordable, good home-style food. You know, biscuits and gravy, omelets, eggs any way you want them, hash browns, biscuit sandwiches, burritos, something people can take and run if they got to get somewhere. Then do lunch, soup, salad, sandwiches, burgers, maybe a steak and potato now and then closed in the evenings as a general rule with occasional event type things, reservation only, prefixed menu, Friday, Saturday night, wine and beer pairings, stuff like that. That's what I would like to do if that's something that works for everyone. I know you guys are wanting to get some food in there. I've been standing behind a grill for most of my adult life and all of my teenage life, so it's something I'm passionate about. I'm good at it, and I'd like to have the opportunity to show you what I've got. I'm meeting with a gentleman, his name has escaped me at the moment. Tomorrow morning, he does the helicopter tours out of the Cameron. We're meeting with Cameron tomorrow to hopefully secure some funding to do the painting, get the signage, just the preliminary funding that we need to get the ball rolling. And at that point, I would hope that after a month or so, it would be self-sustaining. If you guys have had as much interest as you just said, then I don't think we'll have any problems.
What kind of experience do you have, if any, in running a business or running a restaurant?
I've actually been the general manager of 4 different locations. I managed a Sonic right out of high school. Then I moved to Oklahoma and managed another one that just opened up over there. Moved back here, and I was the general manager at IDK Cafe. Opened their second location, opened and ran that location for their first year. And then the Pitts. I was the man behind the meat. You never saw me, but I was the guy that I worked overnight. I smoked all the meat all night, did all the prep work, got all the food, ordered all the product. The management part is not something I enjoy, but I do it because it has to be done. So most likely I would be hiring someone to handle most of the administrative stuff. and I would be in the kitchen. That's what I enjoy.
You got on here 7 to 6, but you said you didn't want to do dinner.
That was actually a time, I was looking at the terminal's operating hours. I would actually close the kitchen at 2,
7 to 2.
7 to 2. That was a mistake on my end.
A lot of people on Saturdays and Sundays, guys bring their kids and different things. A Saturday, Sunday brunch would, I think, would go over good too, if you think about it.
I would like to get into a Sunday or Saturday and Sunday brunch, but as of right now, it's going to be me and one other person. And at 7 to 2, we're already looking at 40 hours, and then that doesn't include prep time before, cleanup time after. So as the team grows, I would definitely move into Saturday, Sunday, evenings, eventually just run it every day, all day. Not 24 hours, but at least breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Let me make a suggestion. We've tried this several times. We don't have a restaurant yet, that's been successful. Would it not be good to have someone, either on staff, on the airport commission, that could be responsible for securing someone at the restaurant, and then bring it to the commission to decide, or to, if it meets with our rules, which we don't have that many, except we want to get the restaurant. I take it that you're a short order cook also, right?
Yes, sir.
Personally?
Yes, sir.
Which I gathered that, which makes that even better. But someone that could visit daily with, James has been doing a good job. And we have others out there that could do this, where they didn't have to come and make the proposal to us until they got a real proposal. This is what we're going to do. This is what our committee has said we would probably live with, and just let us vote on it and go. Why would that not be a better way to do it, rather than have a parade of people coming in here wanting to do it and then never show them back up? Just a suggestion.
And I would still argue the point that I did a year or two ago that says that we are not in the restaurant business. We got a space for lease, and what somebody does with that space is totally up to them, so long as they don't break the law.
Yeah, but then I'm going to come back and say what I said to that last time too,
Yep.
when we had this discussion. We are not, I understand that, but we are in charge of the airport, and we want to have a good business in there that's doing what we want it
Yep.
to do. So I think there's two sides of that fence that we need to look at, and not
Yes,
just
sir.
say we're going to lease this to somebody and that's their responsibility.
Right.
Would you be opposed if we asked Laura and James to be that committee and bring us someone that they have vetted and sorted out and said, we think this is the best people for the job, or something like that? Then we wouldn't have to do it here, is what I'm getting at. Go on their word for it. We haven't been successful the way we've been doing it.
Well, and to your point a while ago, we appreciate you coming and bringing this, but we really need something with more teeth.
Well, and I would love to have had something a little more elaborate for you, but like I said, as of Tuesday morning, that's when I found out that the Pitts wasn't going to do this. And so I jumped on it. My understanding is Cameron's wanting to do something, an event type thing for Valentine's Day, and I knew that your next meeting was not going to be until after that, so I wanted to get in here and hopefully meet his needs, your needs, my needs, everybody's needs, as quickly as possible. So it just kind of got thrown together last minute. So
That was actually I met with him out there on Tuesday morning, or
Tuesday afternoon, yeah.
Afternoon, and showed him the place and everything, and he wanted to do it. And I said, well, our meeting is Thursday, and I know that's quick, but if you could get something together, I thought at least we could get the ball rolling, because he is very interested in it.
So if we could get one commissioner, and you'd be willing to meet with them, I'm sure, Laura, and James, if we could get one commissioner and those two, to put this thing together, negotiate it, and then bring it here and see if we
I mean, he's been talking with Wyman for the last 2 days over through emails and such to try to get it
Yes.
nailed down a little bit better.
Right.
So I don't know where they're at on that, but
What sort of timeline would you look at as far as being able to go into operation, given what you've seen and what you need to do to get ready?
Just looking at the space, I've got maybe 2-3 pieces of equipment that I'd need to get on site, which I can pick those up locally. That's not a problem. A little bit of paint and signage out at the road. That's really all I'd need, and then I can start bringing in groceries and start cooking.
2 weeks?
Yes. I would say January or February 1st, I could probably be operational.
Okay, I've got another question. I realize Monday through Friday. Let's just say that Laura becomes aware, or the FBO has a charter on a Saturday or Sunday that requests food availability as they depart.
I would be open to that anytime. If there's events, if any of the other tenants in the airport are having events that they want to have food available for, I'm open to that. I was told whatever we commit to is what we commit to. So I wanted to keep that rather small and branch out as we go. So Monday through Friday, 7 to 2 would be our base, and then we would add to that as the team grows, as word of mouth spreads.
I think most of the charter food requirements are known in advance. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's usually a little bit of advance notice, not just a spur of the moment kind of thing.
What kind of lead time do you usually get on that?
It's really a Summit question, but
Okay.
it seems like they schedule it probably a week before their flight.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because I only need 24 to 48 hours to get my materials in and get them prepped, so.
But if you needed to put together a half a dozen ham sandwiches and some chips and whatnot, you could do that in a few hours' notice?
I could have that done for you by 3 today.
I feel like Neil's right in that we've gone through this several times, so kind of a combination, a hybrid of what you're saying and kind of what Joel's saying is I really feel like we're not in the restaurant business. I think we should realize that this is not just a standard lease. This is a specialized lease that definitely is a reflection on the airport. For that, I feel like we should come up with some guidelines. I feel like if we're not coming up with guidelines and we're interviewing people, there's a lot of discrimination that could happen there. I feel like we need to come up with guidelines, and if the requirement is they have to be able to provide food for charters, we can put that on the list. They need to be open on Saturday and Sunday for brunch. That's a great idea, but that either needs to go on the list or that needs to be up to their prerogative. He can run his business. We obviously want him to succeed. That makes the airport better. So maybe we set up some bumpers to some degree about what we want to see happen. And then it's a checklist that Laura can go through and say, you meet all these qualifications, and we do it. And maybe that checklist grows over the next 10 years as we modify and change things that he does that are successful, then we remember those things. Maybe he's here for the next 10 years. But us picking a restaurant owner or looking at somebody and talking to them about their business acumen, I think is folly. I just don't think there's any way we're going to be able to tell based off of that, and we need to rent the space. I know we don't make a ton of profit or we don't make a ton of money from that, but as we're all saying, we get asked all the time, when's that restaurant going to open again? So not that we just want to jump at the first person, but I think we can probably set up some guidelines that we like. He's given us a rough outline of what he says he's wanting to do. Maybe we look at this, and if this meets all the standards, then this is a simple decision. If it doesn't, then we come back and say, we'd like to see you open on some Saturday hours. You didn't mention anything about the charters. We'd like to have that included. And if all those things are met, I feel like we rent. Like, we set up rules to make sure that we have our good front door to our city, and that it's something that we're proud of and it adds to the airport, but not have everyone interview and this be like a job interview every time.
Laura and I have reached out to numerous restaurants in the area, as far as Northwest Arkansas and down to Fort Smith. No reply from anybody, so it's...
Well, I think this is a great proposal, in my opinion, but it's not complete. And Mr. Matlock spelled it out in the first sentence. He's aware that this is an incomplete proposal. And he would love to present it in a better form, to where then it's self-explanatory if we pass this on to somebody else down the road. So I think if he can satisfy the fact that he does have the revenue source to put this thing together, and he could assure us and make a proposal. Basically, we've seen other proposals, but proposals that are this, are black and white, I guess. Then I feel that that's doable. The problem we got is the timing.
Right.
In other words,
Right.
you'd love to be up and running in February the 1st, but we're not gonna be here in order to make that happen. And that's one of the reasons I suggested to bypass the airport commission until we can just say yes or no and let a committee work in the interim to see if all this can be put together and happen. I really think this may be as good as we've ever had, or maybe better.
Do we have a commissioner that wants to head up that committee?
Pardon me?
I said, do we have a commissioner that wants to head up that committee and look into that?
They volunteered.
I
Bill?
will. I'll volunteer.
Okay,
Okay?
and then Laura's there at the airport, James at the airport. We know Wyman will be on board, so if you got any questions, so.
Bill, I don't mind helping, but I can't ramrod that, but if you would like to run things by me, I'm happy to help you with it.
Okay, and I've got a question here up front. What sort of timeline does the commission expect or want back from this committee? Do we meet here in the next couple of weeks, get something before you, and decide at the next meeting, or is this something that,
I would say yes.
I would recommend that we're letting two commissioners work this. If they come back with a suggestion in the next 10 days and you can email it out, we can get a roll call off email and we can move on. I don't know that we have to
Problem is
sit.
that if they have meetings, they're gonna have to call the press, and they could do that. But if you just have one in there, they can just go meet at any time they want to, and phone calls, whatever they wanna do.
So,
let's
so
have
what
the
do we,
one.
what do we do about delaying Mr. Farrell's, or, I'm sorry, is it Matlock?
Matlock, yes, sir.
Last is Matlock. What do we do about delaying Mr. Matlock's, hope and dream of starting his new adventure by the 1st of February? We're now delaying it to the 1st of March, or do we look to have something back by the 29th of this
I think
month?
that's what they were talking. Bill
Yeah.
Schoonover, he'll meet with the guy, and if they come up with something, we can do a vote via email anytime that's available.
That doesn't fit into.
Why don't we vote to authorize
That's where I was
committees
going.
to make the call?
That's where I was going, is, yes, if the committee can call me and say they've got a solution, I'll call a special meeting. And we'll get in here real quick, do it, and be done with it. And I think everybody here would be open to that, because we want a restaurant out there so bad. But I just don't think this is a good, full proposal at this point for us to act on.
You're talking 10, is it 10 days? You're talking about having that thing up and ready and running?
All the equipment's there, and as far as I know, it's all working. All I gotta do is get food in there and get one other person to help me and get it up and running. I'd have to throw some paint on, get some signs out by the road. That's really
What's your
all that.
plan as far as getting customers in there?
Well, it's my understanding you've had a lot of traffic already, people asking. So as soon as they hear that there's something there, they're gonna flock. The staff, down at, was it 12 Stone? They used to come through all the time. I mean, word of mouth, some marketing.
Well, I'll tell you what's gonna make it successful is the product. If
That I
people-
have.
If people like the food and the service is good, you won't have any trouble there. The
And-
word of
and-
mouth in this town will get around.
and get word to downtown Emma Street, to the Tyson facility and a couple
Right.
of others where there's head count and then I agree, I think they'll come give it a shot.
Bill, you've got a pretty good understanding of what we're looking for in this guideline, right?
Well, I do, but I've also, would it be reasonable to ask the commission in the next day or so just each of you to formulate a question or two or a thought about, hey, ask this, ask that. I mean, it's a brainstorming, situation. And I'd like to just make sure we try to cover all of our bases or our expectations. Now, I guess what I'm referring to are basic expectations that the commission would like to see this business provide.
Well, he'd have to have time to get a business license to get all his inspections done prior to opening as well.
We can cross those bridges down the road. What we need to do right now is decide if we're gonna appoint a committee of Bill, Laura, pardon me, and James, to look into this and call me with your recommendations. I will immediately get an email out there for everybody and set a call meeting. Rose, is that right? And Rose says we only need 2 hours of notification, which that'll be easily done. Maybe we should give, I think, a next day notice, a day before, which should be good. We should be able to waste a day there. So I'd entertain a motion to that effect.
I think Wyman has a comment.
Got a statement.
Careful with the FOI. You to remember that commissioners can't contact each other outside the.
Yeah, there's we're not gonna have two members, and whoever wants to contact, don't contact me, contact Rose.
But yeah, if any of you have any thoughts or whatever that you'd like to see as an expectation, please forward it to Wyman's office.
We can get it done.
Yeah.
We can get it done legally. So I'll entertain a motion.
Let me see if I can formulate this correctly. I'll make a motion that we actually have Bill spearhead a group that will help outline what a restaurant entity should look like and make the recommendation to us as quickly as possible.
Aren't we wanting to get to the point where we make a contract?
That's why I say
Gonna be?
him get it to us as quickly as possible.
And then at that time, special meeting will be called, and we'll come back prior to the next
I'll
meeting.
leave that up to you to call a special meeting or not.
And then, well, we're gonna have to bring Ernest's office into the loop here to formulate the contract. Is that correct? His office will have to certainly be involved.
Maybe we can have that done prior to the meeting. Yeah, it shouldn't be hard to draft that. Any other discussion? Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Motion second to form this committee. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Okay. You need to get your heads together quick.
Welcome to the city of Springdale.
I'm wore out.
So are you done with me? Do
Yeah.
you have any more questions for me?
I would suggest that you visit with.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Bill.
Get this
I'm just
thing on
saying, do I need to keep
Yeah,
standing
no,
here
we're
like this?
good with you.
Thank you.
And thank you. Activity report, Wyman.
You need,
Balance sheet in there.
I can't hear.
I'm not hearing you.
Failed to get the revenue and expense report in the, what this time we've got the balance sheet. Cash we've got. There's another round of, virus money coming. Got another round of stimulus money coming, less than what we allocated before to airports. Heard from FAA how much is gonna be allocated to our specific airport. expect it'll be less than what we got last time. We got 69,000 last time. You might be thinking about any projects you want to suggest. Don't know what guidelines we've got, but if they follow the same pattern as last time, they didn't want us to do capital improvements, they wanted us to do and get reimbursed for. How much money we're gonna get is kind of hard to put a project together.
And what about the matching funds for this project?
Last time it wasn't a matching grant, we just had to spend the money and send them an invoice. 9,000 and we spent 70.
How many T-hangers we have, open T-hangers we have left?
One day.
What's the cost of that, we know? We closing that T-hanger, that last T-hanger?
It was, I don't remember, a little over 100,000, I think.
Was it that much?
Right at it.
Yeah, it was over 100,000 in closing.
But that was for two, right?
That's just for one.
Oh, it was.
But
I
we're
think
full, so
I think we talked about closing that other one in, but we thought we might need to have open T-hanger.
yeah,
That there's a request for,
people like open T-hangers.
and that.
Isn't it less expensive to build open T-hangers than enclosed? I'm leaning towards enclosing that, and then if we want to build some open Ts, we could do that.
Or just build more open Ts.
Yes.
I was just thinking maybe that was how we could use that money, but that's a little more.
We got a waiting list, can we build open tees right now and for $70,000?
I'm not following you.
Building more open Ts
Are we to
and
send,
using that money.
are we needing a decision on that today, Wyman? We could be discussing it. If it's not gonna affect it, we could talk about it next meeting and get it on the agenda and talk about our hangar needs.
Of course, materials have gone way up, so we need to get a more current estimate on that.
Yes.
And we'll get a report on our hangar status and everything. That's where we can talk about what we need, what we have available. We still don't have that property over there back in our possession, but I don't know, we have other places to build open T-hangers, don't we? So look for good spots.
The reason we have such a waiting list is our rental rates way below market. That much demand?
Yeah. People want to be where they want to be. Rogers, Fayetteville, we're all in the same price line. Everybody calls each other to confirm prices.
And everybody around is full. So they just keep calling the next one and getting on the list. I'm at 67 right now, and a majority of those people do not want open T-hangers at the point.
7? Don't want open tees.
A lot of them don't.
Yeah, they want it enclosed.
Some
but
will
we have
take,
just a
some will
few.
take an open just to get at the airport, but majority want enclosed. A lot of them want bigger sizes. But I mean, everything we have is full, so that's, I mean, they'll take, if they get an open opportunity, they'll take it, whatever it is, a lot of times.
Okay, and we can do that. We can get it on the agenda for the next meeting. And we'll get we look at about the status of our rental issues. And I know it's a good problem to have. I've seen the time when we had a list of hangars and nobody to rent them, so good deal.
I think we'd have to be early to jump on this. If other airports do the same, I'm sure people that are on our list are on somebody else's list too, so.
We need to capture them, you say, that's what you mean.
I'm saying we need to have hangars available before Fayetteville and Rogers
Have our bait in the water?
or we'll be sitting there with open, empty hangars.
Good point. Okay, if nothing else on that,
I'd like to bring up that it looks like we held steady on operations from 19 to 20, but we had a 30% reduction in fuel sales. I think that's something we should be looking at, paying attention to the fact that our fuel sales are going north.
Is it that, or is it things slowed down because of COVID?
Operations stayed the same, but that could count as training. Lots of people doing training or learning to get, there's lots of people learning to fly right now, so that could be part of it. I don't know. I don't know how we look into that and find that out, but it's alarming to me we have a 30% reduction in what we actually make revenue on.
I would say this. We watched this before, and this graph is done during the purchase of fuel.
Understand?
Not in sales. And so I see what you're saying there, but will that spike back up? Because it's low one month, does it spike back up?
Well, it's not month to month. I'm talking year to year.
Yeah, he's talking for the over.
I just think 30%'s a big change. And it could very well be COVID related and it's reduced it, and maybe we're having more operations because people are flying, learning to fly, but aren't necessarily taking as long a trips and filling up as often. But that's a 30% reduction in the portion of this that we make money off of. Obviously, operations go into how we get funding from the federal government, but in the portion that we actually make month-to-month money on, we have a 30% reduction.
I do know this, they moved the school away from there in this past year. Moved to Bentonville,
Of course, you can look back
off and on.
in April if you want to pinpoint it down a little bit more. I mean, it's not consistent, but you can look back to April and see $42,000, $41,000 difference, or 41,000 gallon difference from 20 to 19, just in that 1 month.
And 20 in January.
Yeah.
Well, those two numbers together just about, take up for the difference for the entire year, just those 2 months.
Yeah, they're just virtually nothing.
20,000, 60,000, you're looking at 60,000 gallons of fuel right there. And, but I agree with Micah. I think it's something that warrants, keeping an eye on, because how much of this is local business versus, again, our charters, our transits, where exactly is this revenue coming from?
Yeah.
We have a reason why we lost the training?
Pardon me?
We have a reason why we lost the training to Rogers or Bentonville, or?
There was a big change over there at Summit in of management and everything else. And I'm assuming they just rather had it up at Bentonville. I never did understand why.
I think that would be a question that needs to be answered.
Andrew, I know you're not there day to day anymore, but are you familiar with what's going on there, what the difference is? Do you have any ideas?
Honestly, my opinion is that it is probably, some COVID, yes, but we also had a bunch of charters that were coming in, and we lost a bunch of those, and then Summit, of course, moved up. So I think, I agree, Mike. I think it's a combination effect there. And honestly, I haven't looked at those numbers that closely personally, but it is good to see recovery occurring there. So, I want to look at that a little more closely to do some more analysis on it. But, COVID, obviously, yes, but flight school for sure, and like you guys were saying, big changes happened in Summit in the last year, last year and a half. And, they've got fancy new facilities up in Bentonville and all that sort of stuff. So they've got an operating restaurant and things like that. There's loss of sales because of those things.
There is a huge difference now in daily operations in Bentonville now as compared to even a year or 18 months ago. I mean, if you look at
Yes.
FlightAware on a daily basis, their daily operations, I'm gonna suggest, are twice or more what ours are now.
Well, but to Micah's point, our operations are consistent with last year's.
Right, well, and I think part of
Up a
that,
little bit.
too, Arkansas Helicopter is now providing some instruction now. They've kicked in, they've added 1 or 2 additional aircraft, and that's helped offset some of it.
He's taking over the fixed wing aviation training along with his helicopters.
Right.
So
So
that's
he's
all-
our new flight school.
But what Summit pulled away from Springdale was a significant traffic count. And you just look at what's going on in Bentonville, and it's very, very easy to see.
Well, honestly, I kind of felt like they were working to move more of that up to Bentonville even before everything else left here. There was already pressure to move those, those training operations up to Bentonville longer than the last 18 months, last several years.
Yes.
That effort's been underway.
I think we're underestimating how much COVID's had on this because corporate travel slowed down, numerous things have affected it, and we're down virtually every month, from previous years. Now, again, the difference in the up and down in that you'll see is because when was the fuel purchased? But still come up the same bottom line. But, I believe it had a bigger impact on it than what we're talking about. April, it was non-existent because you know what happened there. The whole world shut down.
But to get competitive, we got to have that restaurant back open. We need to find somebody to do training in Springdale.
I mean, I feel like if we're going to form a committee to figure out who needs to rent our restaurant space, this takes precedence over that in my mind. We've got to figure out where this went. And some of it could be attributed to COVID. There's no question. Some of it has hurt us with with moving to Bentonville. There's no question. And the restaurant would be a big part of bringing that back. But I think we need to be thinking each month we need to be looking at these. This is the third time I've brought it up because it's been lower every single time. Throughout this year I've brought it up. And I just am nervous that our revenue stream here has been reduced. And we've got to be thinking not only growth-minded and adding hangars and things like that, but we've got to be looking at making sure that our revenue stream comes back to us on this and thinking that way. Like you're saying, a training facility, restaurant being open, those things are all going to help. But I think we need to really put some effort into this. In my opinion, we need to put effort into this.
Are you suggesting we go further than asking the representative to be at our meetings? Because he's not here today, but usually he is.
He is, yeah.
And those are good questions to put forth and ask for information and things of that nature. Are you suggesting we go another step?
I mean, I've talked to him. I've talked to Daniel several times about this. I've never gotten any of my answers really resolved. It's the same stuff. I mean, we get the same, it's COVID and whatever, but this is a trend.
He's not Summit, he's an employee. We're going to have to get into the management to find out.
I just think we need to be looking at this rather than just going through the numbers and saying, yeah, operations are pretty good. They're not. I mean, operations are holding steady, but like fuel sales are going down. And you're right, it's very difficult month to month to say how it was because of purchase versus what's in the tank right now versus how low they are. And all, I mean, obviously they probably went into May bone dry because I'll bet they sold fuel in April, but they just didn't buy any, which makes sense. Business, we were all trying to figure out what was going to happen at that point. But I think we got to watch this.
I would venture to say that if you looked at Bentonville, COVID didn't affect them. They went up from the year before.
I would agree with Steve's statement.
Need to look at how we can compete with them. Otherwise, everybody goes to Bentonville.
I read an article, who are the survivors and the winners of the COVID issue, and general aviation was listed. It's not even an aviation article. Like, people started learning to fly airplanes, people started flying airplanes, started doing those types of activities. All those recreational things did. Motorhomes and ski boats and all of that, right? So we got to figure out I don't want this to slip away on us.
You're saying it's bigger than just Springdale Airport. You're saying we should have bumped up.
I think we should have gone
rather
up.
than down.
I think our operations did go up. I think this went up because of people learning to fly, and that our fuel cells is probably more representative of what's actually happening at our airport right now.
Difference in filling up a 172 and a G5. So that's where I go with this. The operations tell you one thing. We get operation off the helicopters. We get an operation just like the largest jet that comes in there. We have, one thing I'm sitting here trying to understand is if we are losing fill-ups from those planes we see sitting out there day after day after day, which is fairly large fuel-consuming jet aircraft, corporate jet, are we getting our share of the fuel sales to that? Is there any way to increase that if we're not? That's just a question we could ask Summit, which is a fair question. And but that goes back to what I asked you. Are you suggesting we do something other at this point than have a representative here during a meeting?
I think what I'm suggesting is each of us plan next week to ask Daniel questions, and if he doesn't answer our questions well, then we ask that Dave or one of the other guys, Mark or somebody, comes and helps us understand that. And we might even so much as give him a notice and say, hey, Daniel, we had some questions about the droppage in fuel, and we'd like some explanation on that, some ideas on where we feel like we're losing that business, where we're gaining business, what's going on here, so that we can address it. Because if general aviation's dropped off because everyone that gets in an airplane's flying to Bentonville to have dinner or lunch, our restaurant may make a bigger impact than we know on this. But if it's those airplanes that are housed here and they're flying up at their destination, they're filling up at their destination rather than here, then we can make adjustments to that as well. So I just feel like when we have a 30% drop in our income, or what we base our income off of here, I think it's something we should be looking at. I know we rent hangars. If you look at the business of renting the hangars like we do for what we spend on them and what they rent for, it's a terrible business. This business shouldn't be a terrible business, though. We should make some money off this business. And it looks to me like we've lost money here. And in COVID or whatever else, I feel like general aviation. And that's also like way back when, we've talked about this before, we were pushing for more of the jet traffic, more pushing for bigger planes. And Springdale's always been known for general aviation. It's the home of welcoming people for general aviation. So we want to make sure we're still doing that, and that restaurant be a big part of that. I don't know what other parts we can do to try to encourage that. I think we lost a lot with the fly-ins for football games. The football game stuff was messed up enormously this year. So I'd like to know. Yeah, I think we asked Daniel, everyone think about this and realize that we have a big drop here, and this isn't a 1 month fluke. This is a year that we've looked at, and it's dropped. And just a general idea of why that's happened and what his thoughts are. And if he can't give us anything that we feel like we can work off of to try to plan our future strategy of how we're going to grow that business, then we ask Dave or Mark or somebody to come in and explain that answer for us better. Does that make sense?
I think we asked Dave and Mark anyway. We haven't heard from them in over, how many, I know over a year, have we?
At least a year.
It's been several months.
Mark? We haven't heard from Dave and Mark the past year.
A really important breakdown is what is Jet A versus Avgas sales. I want to know how much we're selling. You know, what has our Jet A been for the last 3 years? You know, because just gallons doesn't really tell us where the market's changed. Right. I'll bet if you look at our Avgas sales, it's probably not near as far down as our Jet A sales. I mean, just totally guessing based on what I see fly in and out. So I want to see what are we actually doing Jet A versus Avgas during this timeline, not just gallons.
I think that I think
combined.
it's fair to say, give Daniel a chance to come in here and address it, and we can ask for more information. But I'm bothered with the fact of how much we are allowed or should go into their business. We don't have in a contract with them that they must sell a certain amount of gallons of fuel, things of that nature. We're to manage the airport based on what the contract reads with the FBO. Are they meeting that standard? And we are saying if you are running FBO at Springfield Airport, we get so many cents per gallon of what you sell. We have never put to them, you must sell X amount of fuel. So that bothers me to some extent. It don't hurt to have the discussion and ask why, and is there anything we could do to improve that? But I don't know just how deep. I'm gonna have to think about that.
Well, I don't mean to question their business model. I mean to question if there's anything we can do in our strategy for the next 5 years that we should do to help improve that. Because we definitely, this is not something where I feel like they're breaking their lease. It's just a matter of what can we do to help improve these numbers here and bring Springdale back up to the numbers, or to meet. I mean, who's in a better spot than Summit to tell us what makes an airport really thrive? Because they're in an airport that's really thriving, and what can we do to try to get some of that in our business too?
It'd be in their best interest to sell all the fuel they can, and that's the question we need to ask them. Is it being pulled back?
Yeah, I don't think they're
More money for
doing us
Summit is more
wrong.
money
I
for
just
us.
want to know what their suggestions are and what the breakdown is so we can figure it out, because
We have a facility there that should attract the businesses, you know, that we've provided, and then they're providing service. So, yeah, it's something we need to delve into. But again, I'm bothered by some of just how much, we can't make too many demands, I wouldn't think, but, just a thought.
But
I don't know, I'm just a thought.
I like Andrew's suggestion, the Jet A versus the 100 low lead, that's your heavy iron versus your 172s. And I think those numbers would almost speak for themselves as far as where the business is going or who's generating what. I think that would be a very quick answer to some of these questions.
It ought to be an easy place to start, and then, like Micah said, give us an opportunity to say, how can we help you improve this business? Not, here's what you're doing wrong, but how can we help you make it better for all of us?
just the wording of the email. We want your expertise. You know what's going on with this. Can you help give us some details on what it is that we can do so we can aim to grow this airport and get more participation here, more fuel sales, what the direction is. They should be in the perfect position to be able to tell us that. So you know, I don't mean to have them come in and stand on under testimony for us as much as advise us on what they think we should do.
Understand.
Attract businesses to the airport that work on airplanes, you gain twice. You gain on fuel sales and you gain on sales tax. Because you get sales tax back from businesses that are.
Well, we'll make a contact with them and ask them to come and provide the information we've discussed as much as possible, and we can have a good, honest discussion with the representative next month's meeting. Everybody good with that? Okay, they're already on the agenda, but we'll encourage them to attend. And I don't know, I mean, they've always been represented here for the last several years. So there's something that's different today. What do you have on our grant information, Wyman? Pardon me? It shows that you're,
Page 8.
Just noticed that the revenue and expense.
okay. So we can get that all updated by the next meeting. We're gonna be talking about hangars anyway. Okay. Adam or Garver?
Awesome. Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Thomas with Garver. I handed out some papers to you guys, some exhibits. I'll talk about those in the second part of this discussion. But first, I'm just going to give you guys an update on the Taxiway B extension project. Just as a reminder, this was the fiscal year 2020 project. It's the design-only project, and construction is supposed to start in 2022. This project, the design of this project was 100% funded by the AIP program, so you guys don't have to worry about that. Last time, just to kind of give you guys where we're at now, we were wrapping up the geotechnical testing at the airport, and that's just looking at the soils. And I talked about how we were testing the cement content necessary to improve the soil conditions. We were also undergoing preliminary design. And finally, we talked about the floodplain study. I told you guys that it was necessary for us to apply for a CLOMR and how we'd have to coordinate with the city on that. The CLOMR itself isn't that big of an issue. It's just a little bit of extra coordination. I mentioned that it's going to be a few month-long process, but we already got that started with the city, and everyone's on board with that, so that should go smoothly. This time around, just an update on everything that's happened the past month. We received the geotech report with their recommendations from the geotechnical investigation. The floodplain study is still going smoothly. We haven't submitted that CLOMR to FEMA yet, but we are approaching submitting that. And then the environmental is wrapping up as well. We have coordinated with a lot of agencies necessary for that. Also, we're wrapping up preliminary design. That includes some fleet mix analysis, so kind of looking at the operations like you guys were talking about earlier. And we use that to help design how thick the pavement section is going to be. And so that's what we've been working on a lot recently. And this preliminary design is due to the FAA by the beginning of March. And so we'll have that wrapped up and probably submitted to them by mid-February is what we're looking at. Also, during the past month, we had a meeting with FAA Tech Ops. Those are the guys that handle the instrument landing systems, the glide slope, and the localizer. We just want to talk to them because the area that we are going to be extending the taxiway is right next to that glide slope system on the northeast side. So we just wanted to get on the same page with them to see what they wanted to see in this project and what kind of coordination was necessary. We had a good meeting with them. They approved of all of our plans, and we're actually going to improve some of the access that they have to their glide slope infrastructure on that side of the airport. So all good things there from FAA Tech Ops. And like I said, moving forward, we're going to submit preliminary plans to the FAA by the end of March. We're going to have final plans ready by April with the potential to start construction if funding becomes available by early this summer, midsummer, something like that. Any questions about the Taxiway B extension project? Awesome.
The
Yes, sir.
stabilization on that dump area, have you did any preliminary work on the stabilization of the area that has the bad soil in it that was used for a dumping ground?
Yes, so the testing that we had, the geotechnical engineers run was how much cement to put into it. And I guess to give you some more backstory, we were debating between either we could remove all of the bad soil, fill it up with good soil, or we could just add cement to a little bit of the bad soil to make it better.
And bridge it, just in essence, bridge it, right?
Yes, correct. And so what we end up concluding is that we're going to add cement to probably the top 8 inches or so of the soil out there. And that should be cheaper than having to dig out, which we would have had to dig out like 2 feet and replace with 2 feet of good material. So it was kind of an economics decision on that. And so ultimately, yes, we're going to cement treat the soil there and then build up with our gravel and then our asphalt on top of that is the plan for the pavement section. Awesome. Any other follow-up questions to that? Cool. Awesome. So now we'll talk about the hangar, and I'll start to talk about some of these exhibits and papers that I handed out to you guys earlier. Just as a review, we received bids for this project in December. That was just after our last meeting, and we submitted an application to the Arkansas Department of Aeronautics. If you remember last time, we submitted two grants, an 80-20 and a 90-10. And we submitted 2 because of how the funding worked out. This project was planning on being $450,000 was what it was bid at, and so we submitted 2 grants, one for $250,000 and another for $150,000 to get as much funding from the ADA as possible. And so we submitted those grants at the end of the year. And since then, this past month, just kind of give you an update of what we've been working on now, is we heard back from Jerry Chisholm. He is the director of the Arkansas Department of Aeronautics. We've kind of been in conversations with him, and James has been involved with a little bit of them on their support for this project. So they liked the project, they were interested in supporting it, and they liked the idea behind it. However, there were a few items that they were worried about from the project that they saw in our applications, and those just had to deal with the pavement getting torn up whenever a hangar would be constructed. So as it stands now, we don't have, there won't be any hangars on this taxi lane at the time it's being constructed. So if we were to build out the entire taxi lane, apron, and parking area, and if they were to come in and construct a hangar, Jerry and the Department of Aeronautics is worried about that construction activity from the hangar damaging some of the pavement and causing some issues there where we might have to replace a lot of pavement and have to deal with that. And then the other issue that they had with it is cost. They were worried about it costing too much, and they didn't have enough funding available for Springdale for that one. Yes, sir, you look like you had a question. Okay, sorry. And so those are the two items that they were worried about, damaging pavement and then just cost. And so we worked with James and Jerry to kind of come up with a solution. And the solution is actually what I've included for you guys on this 11 by 17, the larger sheet here. So if you see, they actually wanted us to cut about $100,000 of the $450,000 project. And so if we're looking at this exhibit I have, the red items are the items that we have proposed to remove. And so that includes the electrical infrastructure. So that'll be just anything that gets electric to the hangar. The access road and parking, that's everything on the south side. You can kind of see that I graded out a little bit there on the south side of the hangar. And then finally, the apron. And the apron will just be aggregate base course. It won't be asphalt. So the idea there is that we'll build up the subgrade and the base of the apron. We'll do all of the drainage infrastructure installation, but we'll just put gravel as the top part of that so that whenever they come in and construct the hangars that they don't have to worry about tearing up gravel, because eventually we'll just come in and pave over that and not have to worry about that final lift there. So is there any questions about what's included versus not included in this new proposed grant?
From a hangar standpoint, what's more important, water infrastructure or electrical infrastructure?
That is a good question. I would say they're probably electrical is more important. However, well, actually, sorry, let me backtrack. In this case, the water is more important because we need to have the fire. Like fire code requires us to have the fire hydrants there. Generally speaking, though, just having water or sewer to a hangar is less important than electricity. But in this case, the water is required because of the fire hydrants, and that's just required by the fire marshal.
So what is the net savings by keeping the electrical out?
So I actually have a breakdown of the three items that we kind of talked about here. So like I said, it's $100,000 is what we reduced it by. So the $450,000 project is now looking at about $340,000, $350,000. And that is, so the apron paving, so removing the apron paving and replacing it with the gravel, that is about $20,000. The electrical infrastructure, removing that from the project was about $28,000. And the access road and parking, all of that infrastructure to the south side is $55,000 to $60,000. And I can go over those numbers again if you guys want me to repeat those.
What was included in the electrical infrastructure rather than other than just conduit?
It's conduit and then some of the coordination to put the transformer base, and coordination with the utility, and then just putting the transformer on site, I believe. Let me just look through that real quick. Yep. So it's mainly conduit.
That sounds a little high to me.
Agreed. It's one of the reasons we cut it. We felt like in the bid, it was a little high. It's the conduit for the primary, and it's the base for the transformer, and then just being the conduit or the communicator with the facility. So it seemed like a reasonable thing to cut out of the bid because we think we get it cheaper later, or just a developer in the future could get it a lot cheaper than that. Plus, they'd have the hangar there, which usually offsets a lot of utility costs in the future. And so once you have the building planned, as you know, I'm sure, you get a deal with the utility. So
you'll actually know what you need.
That's right. That's right.
I think that's a good deal.
Awesome. Any more questions about that? I still have a few more talking points to go over. let's see. Awesome. So like I said, this is the new proposed application that we'd like to send in to the Arkansas Department of Aeronautics. And we've had enough conversations with Jerry, the director over there, to know that this will make it on the February agenda. And we're pretty confident that we can receive this amount of funding. Let me just get caught back up here. And so if we receive the funding in the February commission meeting, we should hear back from them by mid to late February on if we receive the grant. And that'll still put us at construction time around mid to late March, which was in line with our original schedule. March/April is a good time to start construction just because of weather and things like that. Any questions about the timeline or the funding or anything like that? Awesome. Any questions from us in general? I guess I'll talk through this 3-page document that I have really quick. It just documents the 2 grants that we're applying for. The first one is the 80/20 grant. This is the larger of the 2. And so this is just at the bottom you can see there's a $250,000 grant from the ADA. That'll leave the city of Springdale paying $63,000. If you flip to page 2 is the 90/10 grant. This includes a lot of the paving and fence infrastructure, and this kind of just is the remaining of what wasn't included in the $250,000.
What's the max grant for each of those?
So the max that they were willing to give is for the 80/20, it's listed at the bottom. It's that $250,000, and then for the 90/10, the max or the cap is $150,000. And so originally what we did is we applied for $250,000 for the 80/20 and $150,000 for the 90/10. That'll be $400,000. And that was our first application. And like I said, they turned that down, or they wanted us to revise it. And so now we're applying for, if you look on the 3rd page, it talks about it. We're applying for, let's see, about $350,000. And that'll leave the city of Springdale's share at $75,000. And so when compared to the last time, this is saving the city of Springdale money because we reduced the scope, but it's also saving the Arkansas Department of Aeronautics some money so that they can fund this project. Yep.
Maybe one clarification to that. I don't know if it's really saving you money. At some point, the apron needs to be paved, the electrical infrastructure needs to be put there, but it could be a point to where maybe a developer does that in the future or another state grant. Remember, July 1 is the state's new fiscal year, and so there's opportunities for more grants after July 1 again. And so you could try to recapture that $100,000 of savings maybe in a 90/10 grant after July, once hopefully there's a hangar project up and away as well, and you could time it to where the hangar finishes and then you pave the apron right after that. So you've got options in the future. And what I like about the solution, we went back and forth with the state quite a bit, is obviously a big hurdle to this development area was the taxiway to get out to it. And so at least with this, we get the expensive infrastructure, which is the taxiway and the water line, and then we get basically everything but the asphalt for the rest of it to make that, hopefully that site a lot more appetizing for a potential developer. So.
Awesome. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Old business. I've got a question. I believe it's the acronym is the AAGA, which is Arkansas Aeronautical General Aviation. Was that not what we are paying a annual fee for that service? And I want to know if anybody knows if we're getting any benefit out of it and what we're paying. Are you not? You remember?
I get the emails on a regular basis.
Well, the
What's
guy
going on in the area.
guy came in here about 2 or 3 years ago, and he told us on the idea of joining the AAGA. And he does put out an email, once in a while that we get, but all the promises making it how great how much help they were gonna give us on grants, and I don't know. It was just a lobbying group, as I understood it, for Arkansas General Aviation. All my question is, what's the cost? Have we received any benefits? Does anybody know? Should we continue it? Should we revisit it? Because no one's come back in here and said, hey, we need to keep this going, or they just send us a bill every month, every year. And I guess we pay it. I think we ought to look into it. I can't tell you from this standpoint that we've received one benefit out of it, from it.
Adam, do they help us with grants or anything at all?
They do not. I don't know what their lobbying schedule is. Obviously, we're in general session right now in the state. I haven't seen anything. I'm not on the email list, though, so maybe they're doing things. I know they had a state aviation day 2 years ago, but I think this last one got canceled because of COVID. So I'm not sure if they're planning on doing that again. But that's been my exposure to them. We're also card-carrying members, but I don't talk to them either. So
What are we paying for that?
Is it $500 a year?
that's what I seem to remember. We're a corporate, so it's a little bit different, but I was thinking with y'all's category, you were one of the higher amounts per year. That seems right.
That's from memory. I'm not certain about that.
Well, I agree with Neil. You know, yeah, we get a monthly newsletter, but oftentimes that monthly newsletter is nothing more than a reprint from an article that perhaps you might have read somewhere else. And more or less just an FYI type thing. And the fact that other airports, it does show you what other airports are trying to do in the way of activities and whatnot, but as far as any real benefit, I can't tell you that I could identify anything that they brought to the table for us.
Do we know how we pay that? Is that paid annually?
It's billed
Has it
annually.
been paid?
It is billed annually,
And I guess January to December?
somewhere around in there.
So I guess that'd be my next question, or when is our dues obligation up? What is the annual, you know, when's the annual fee due?
I believe it was already paid.
Or say if
It's
we haven't
paid for
already,
this year?
we hadn't already
That's for
paid
money
it.
back.
I would encourage you to reach out to them for assistance before you actually say we're not going to be part of the membership anymore. As many different rags as I belong to through my industry, they help me every time I ask for assistance. If we're part of this group and we're not asking for help, are we expecting them to read our minds and know when we need help? I think it's our obligation as card-carrying members to go ahead and request assistance when we need assistance. And I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that they would help us.
On grants and that sort of thing?
I have absolutely no doubt that they will put their money where
Yeah,
their
for
mouth is.
Garver, are you ever asking them for assistance? Are they there for assistance, or what's your opinion?
We have not asked them for assistance. I'll be blunt. We support them because our airport supported them. So, you know.
Have you heard any rumbling from any other airport or entity that's a member?
I have not heard anything negative. No, sir.
I would just like to see it checked on it, see if we're getting any benefit. If not, my question is, why are we staying involved?
Why don't we ask, I think his name is Robbie, why don't we ask him to come visit with us?
Right.
Sure.
Good.
Robbie Wills?
Me?
Robbie Wills, I believe is his name.
I believe that's
Need to
correct.
get him a message. Can you do that, Rose? Okay, thanks. That's all I had on that. Any other old business? Comments from the commissioners?
Are we up to date on our through the fence? I apologize if I missed something early on in the meeting, but are our through the fence obligations all cleared up? I don't know that I saw it on the,
James had comments on that last month.
Yeah, I think we only had one that was outdated. I think that's all cleared up.
so we're all good there?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other question? If not,
See you, Barker.